Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room with myself, Louis Fell, and it is another episode of the Matchday mornings. I don't think we've ever had this before. Two Monday night football games in a row. Very, very strange sensation to watch. All of the Premier League clubs, all of bloody England, essentially play football twice before getting to watch our side play. Very, very bizarre sensation. But after this, we're back to the 3 p.m. kickoffs, aren't we? So it's all good. It is, of course, Manchester United versus Liverpool tonight, 8 p.m. kickoff, so 7:30 p.m. for those of you here. We'll get our watch along underway about 7:30, so make sure you're around for that. Lots to get into for the match day morning, which is great. I was wondering whether we'd have content or not for this, but big revelations coming out yesterday in a Jurgen Klopp press conference. Exactly how big of a deal is it all? Has it been wildly taken out of context, over analysed? What's going on exactly? We'll talk about that. I'm sure you've all heard about it through Twitter, social media by now. Big admissions, apparently, by Jurgen Klopp in regards to transfers and bringing in midfield signings. So we'll talk about that in detail today. I think that's probably the biggest thing we'll be talking about. But then, of course, there is also Naby Keita. A potentially big game for him is what's coming out of certain sources. There's a belief that he's really wants first team football, and if he doesn't get shown that level of trust, then he will not be signing a new contract with us. And if that's the case, we may have to move him on fairly quickly. Whether that's this window, I don't know necessarily. Klopp also had some stuff to say on that in his press conference as well. And then also, just in terms of general team news, Curtis Jones is someone who is a bit of a worry at the moment. Klopp again talking about him in the press conference, and he was quite mystical with it. That it sounds like they're not too sure what the hell's going on with Curtis Jones. He's got a bit of a stress fracture or a stress injury of some sort, and that they just can't seem to pinpoint exactly what it is or what's causing it or what's going on. So we will just have to wait on that one, unfortunately. But the crux of today is Man United versus Liverpool. Huge game. Fan base who are actually not that far disaligned from each other, it seems nowadays. Large sets of their fans growing increasingly angry with the owners. There's a potential that there could be protests outside today's game. It is, of course, taking place in Old Trafford. There could even be some walkouts. Who knows? And if it gets serious enough, maybe there'll be a postponement. We'll have to see. But I don't think I've seen enough. I don't think I've seen enough from Man United fans to suggest that there's going to be anything, massive from them. I don't know. I mean, Casemiro was pretty much a signing to try and stifle fan oppression, wasn't it? Just to stifle fans' anger. And I feel like it worked. I mean, I know you've got Mark Goldbridge suddenly, coming out as this leader, despite never wanting to be that necessarily, and he's banging the drums of we need to get the Glazers out, stop buying into all of their tactics. They're just spending billions of pounds to shut you up. It's interesting, isn't it? So we'll have to wait and see, and I'm sure that will develop as the day goes on, and we'll start to see pictures from outside the grounds and all that. But yeah, as Jen says, thank you to everybody who is joining, by the way. Please do get involved in the live chat. When it's just me, I really do want to have a conversation with you guys and get your opinions on stuff. So please do get involved in the live chat. Jen says, if there is a protest, we should get all 3 points. Well, that's exactly mirroring what Jurgen Klopp said as well. And I don't see why that's an outrageous point to make. Like, we've got nothing to do with it. Why should we, be made to suffer for Man United fans deciding to protest this specific game? They could have done it to Brentford if they wanted. They would have saved themselves a lot of heartache, wouldn't they? And they're looking to do it again. There was no punishment whatsoever last time they did this, which was only last season or the season before. Absolutely zero punishment for them. So I don't think there's nothing else the Premier League can do. If the game gets called off today, that's it. Man United have got to see the 3 points. You can't just reschedule this one again whenever United fans feel like getting a game called off, or if United can't find a way to call that off. It's a club problem, not a league problem. COVID is a league problem. I mean, it's a world problem, but it's a league problem in terms of it affects everybody within the league. So therefore, it's up to the league to sort out what happens. That's why games get moved. That's why the league in total gets postponed. But points don't just get written off. If a club gets 4 players sent off in a game, the match is forfeited essentially, and the other team takes the points because it's a club issue. It's their problem, not the other teams. So look, I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe I'm completely misreading the room here, but I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough anger. Now, I think their time to shine was maybe straight after Brentford, but again, it's so early in the season. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's different at the start of the season. Things like this can happen, and you're obviously outraged. But then things move, and you could easily get to the middle of the season. They've turned things around, and suddenly they're well in contention for top 4. Who knows? So I think to quote bloody Tenet, I think anger or rage very quickly turns over into being quite docile. And just kind of accepting it and getting on with it. And I think there's certainly going to be United fans out there who are angry and will turn up to the ground, shouting and screaming and what have you. And there probably will be a little protest or a big protest. I don't bloody know. But whether there's going to be enough of them in the right headspace to do that, to genuinely create enough noise, I don't think so. I don't know. Also, if they postpone, we'll be much stronger when we play them and still slaughter them. In regards to our home game against them in a few months' time. Yep, absolutely. Happy match day, says Liz. Yep, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who is here. I appreciate it. It's an early start, but you've got to do what you've got to do. And there was a lot to talk about from yesterday, wasn't there? So we can continue to get into that. Still don't think we sign anyone, says Tom Smith. Well, we'll talk about that now, actually. Carmino, sorry for ignoring. I wasn't ignoring you, but hello, thank you very much. Anissa says United fans are so fickle. Well, I think they've got like a genuine reason to be annoyed, but this is the Liverpool, the LFC transfer room, not the Man United transfer room, so we won't talk about them too much. Is it true if the match is postponed for safety, we have to play at a later date by league rules? Well, actually, you might be right on that one, Liz, but I think they've got to make a special circumstance, haven't they? Because it's happened specifically for this fixture. Like, they earmarked it weeks ago, and it's not our fault, is it? It's not our fault. So how can that be anything to do with us? It's everything to do with the club. It's not a safety issue in that it's just an outside factor that's gone wrong, is it? It's because of the club's actions, whether they're right or wrong, the fans are protesting it and causing the match to become unserious. So, Jen, we'll get into those comments now. So, there was a tweet, there was a press conference, and I don't think there was much noise from the press conference. But then a certain person, who I'm not going to mention by name because I don't know if we're meant to be friends with them or not on this channel. So I'm not going to mention exactly them by name, so I haven't clarified it yet. But someone on Twitter essentially mashed 2 quotes together from a press conference, 2 separate quotes, mashed them together, and didn't indicate that they'd been mashed together and were actually 2 separate quotes from 2 separate points. Someone attacked this person for that and said, this is clickbait, this is terrible journalism, and this reporter then got on the defensive and was like, "Oh well, there's a word limit, there's a character limit on Twitter actually, so I get off your high horse." But if you're going to mash 2 quotes together that are not directly following each other, you've got to signal that. If you're a credible journalist, you've got to signal when 2 quotes are not actually linked together. He tweeted this all within 1 quote. No indication of a break. So Jurgen Klopp said, in parts, we have more injuries than we could have imagined, and it would be cool to have another midfielder in, of course. Then there is also another fact that I am not in charge of what we can spend. That's the situation. So when you read that on paper and you read that as it's written, which is one coherent quote, alarm bells start ringing and a lot of people start coming out and going, I was right. I bloody knew it. It's FSG being tightwads. They're not backing Klopp. Klopp is calling them out right now. This is unbelievable. We're going to have to sign someone. Otherwise, there's going to be fan unrest, etc., etc. That's what came out, essentially. When people then actually went back and looked at the press conference, and I did watch it as well, and I watched that entire bit where those two quotes are said. Well, Anissa, it was said, right? Don't get me wrong, it was said, but right, let me read it out again. So we have more injuries than we would have imagined, and it would be cool to have another midfielder in, of course. That should have been end quote. And then later he says, then there is also another fact that I am not in charge of what we can spend. That's the situation. So people can tell me, can say, "Oh, read between the lines. He's obviously calling out FSG. This is, him saying he's unhappy." Well, why is he suddenly unhappy? Well, because he's got some injuries. Fair enough, but maybe he should have known about that. I don't know. We can talk about like what the actual message is saying, but what he actually said in one go was, we have more injuries than we would have imagined, and it would be cool to have another midfielder in, of course. But for now, we don't know when the boys come back from injury. You just cannot do that. Sign a midfielder for now. So he's actually not said anything new. He has not said anything groundbreaking or anything that's new to what we already knew that he had said, right? That was a horrible sentence. I wish I'd done better there. Apologies. Make sure you like and subscribe, by the way. All he's saying in this is that it's a bummer that we've got more injuries. And if we could just sign someone for the here and now to cover for these injuries, fantastic. The problem is we don't know when these players come back and necessarily. And we've never been in the business of just buying, apart from Ozan Kabak and Ben Davis. You can't just sign someone for now. Whether that's right or wrong or not is up to you, but that's his opinion. That's what he has said. Okay, another part of what he said was, but we have to, and we always did, make sure that it must be the right player. And if the right player is not available at this moment, then we tend to deal with what we have rather than sign a player who is not 100% right. This situation did not change. Right? So for anybody out there saying, well, it's Klopp's words, he said it, FSG aren't backing him, why else would he say it like that? He hasn't said that. The situation did not change. We sign players if they are available and are the right player. And if they're not 100% right, we don't sign them. Okay? Again, if you don't think that his opinion on that is right, argue with your nan. That's fine. I don't care. But we are going to make sure that what he said is not being taken out of context, mashed together to suit a narrative. This journalist may have very well just accidentally done this or have just not thought it through. I'm not saying this person has an agenda. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. Anissa says, I was confused when he said that he's happy with the midfield when everyone is fit because that's the issue. They aren't fit. Well, again, maybe he is wrong on that. Maybe he is being slightly naive. I don't know necessarily. But that's not really the issue here. The issue is that there was sudden outrage on Twitter last night and in our group chats, which was quite a funny read, actually. A lot of people thought that they'd been proved right. And this is what happens. This is what happens when I say you cannot have, interesting, fulfilling, contextual discussions, debates, arguments, whatever you want to call them, through someone who just looks at football through, Twitter, the way that Twitter operates, how people talk to each other on Twitter with, ratio and bloody top red. And, if someone slightly thinks this way, they're automatically an FSG lover, or if someone thinks this way, they're automatically, bloody Klopp out or something ridiculous like that. There's never a middle ground, and there's never a time when people will just take a step back and actually look, right? And I'm coming at this with my own biases as well. I'm not suggesting I am the one superpower, the one ethereal being necessarily who can look at things objectively. All of this that I'm saying comes through my perspective as well, but I feel like I am able to take that step back a little bit more than some people are necessarily. So what's happened is that person, on purpose or not, has put together two things that make it sound quite convincingly, when you just read it like that Klopp is saying, well, I'm not in charge and I would love to have a midfielder in. That's what it reads. If we could have a midfielder in, I would love to, but I'm not in charge, so therefore we can't. That's what reading between the lines of that quote, that forced quote, is. And for anybody who was already on the train of, FSG are the baddies in this, Klopp's got nothing to do with it, Klopp's being held back, they will look at that and instantly jump on it. Oh, I'm right. That's it. Fantastic. Everyone else, swivel on that. You didn't believe me. And you're just getting pie on your face. Because even now, a lot of people this morning have woken up, read the actual quote, and gone, "Oh, yeah, he's not actually said that, has he? He's not." We can all look at what's read on paper and assume that was a very well thought through piece of information that Klopp is sharing with us. When you watch it, not only is it not said in that way, not only is it spread out, and the way Klopp usually says things, says, there's a lot of conjecture in the middle, etc. But it was a throwaway comment, really. It wasn't some calculated attempt to call out the board or call out his position within the club. Because when you think about that, why would he do that? Why would he do that? And you can jump to the wild conclusion that because now all of a sudden he's unhappy. But why would that change? It's changed because of some injuries. But when those players come back, he's more than happy with his midfield. In that quote, the only thing he was unhappy about was the injuries, which has nothing to do with FSG. And if they could sign a midfielder who was 100% right, 100% ready to come and available, who could fill in during that time, they would do it. In his eyes, there isn't. In his organisation's eyes, there is not. And he has not come out on record and said that there is. If he'd have said that, that's important. That's worth getting into an argy-bargy about. And then I would start to, question, what my interpretation of the situation is. If he'd have said something like, yeah, these injuries aren't great, there's players out there who would do well for us. There's definitely players out there who would do well for us, but I'm not in charge of signings. That's a red flag. That's a red flag. That's when you start to think, oh, okay, now he's starting to suggest something. But that's not what he's done. That is not what he's done. Thank you to everybody who's getting involved and lots of people watching. Please do like this video. Please subscribe as well. We do have the watch along for the game tonight, 7:30 p.m. We'll go live with the team news, etc., and all the way through the game, the full 90 minutes. And then, of course, we'll have post-match reaction as well. Anissa says, I don't blame just one person in this situation. In my opinion, everyone has a part to play, including Klopp. However, I'm not going as far as calling anyone's head. So I feel like from that, we've got a pretty similar viewpoint. Whether we need a midfielder or whether there is an available midfielder, genuinely, and not just because, he plays for them over there, therefore he would love to come here. If you genuinely know that there's an available midfielder who would definitely come here and is affordable, brilliant. Again, go argue with your nan. I have never, I don't know. Maybe I have. I'm not going to put myself into a corner here. But for a few good weeks now, I have not argued that we do or don't need a midfielder. In fact, I probably lean towards we should sign a midfielder this year, but we probably won't. My issue has always been where people choose to divert the blame because they've got no idea. The cold hard fact is that Jurgen Klopp re-signed this summer or in the spring or whenever it was. Klopp re-signed with us. So he's had the 4 or 5 years here, whatever it was. Has been through all of the transfers, selling, buying, contract negotiations, all that stuff. He knows what FSG are. He knows what Michael Edwards was. He'll know what Julian Ward is, the team around him, the scouts, the developmental coaches, everything. He knows how all of that works, and he decided to put pen to paper, right? And whilst I love him, and I believe he does have a genuine love for Liverpool as well, does he have a divine allegiance with this club? No, he doesn't, right? I'm the most romantical, emotional, over-the-top fan there is in that regard, right? But even I can take a step back and say he's not bound to us by blood, right? He loves the club. That's brilliant, but that's never stopped anyone leaving. If he was not happy with the way things were run, or if he was not happy with his role in transfers, he would not have re-signed that contract. Therefore, signing that contract means he is happy with all of that stuff. Ergo, whether we have, whether he is an active part of selecting players we go for or not, he has signed off on it. He is happy with it. So it actually doesn't matter how involved he is. And not many managers these days are actively involved in transfers at all. Even Pep, I don't think. Maybe he gives them a bloody list. I don't know. But it's all going on in the background constantly. Scouts are going out, director of football doing his thing, whatever. Klopp's role has never been about the transfers. It's always been about the team. But by signing that contract, he has indicated, and there's no other way to read this, that he is happy where he is. That means he's happy with how things are run. If he thought he wasn't backed the way he wants to be backed, he would not have signed. I guarantee you that. I really do. No transcendental love for the club would keep him at a place where he does not feel backed. He loves the fans. He loves the image of the club, but he loves his workplace. That's always going to be the biggest thing that keeps you there. He loves his workplace. He loves the people around him and the processes and how the club operates. He's always said that he prefers the way we do things, etc. Whether that's right or wrong, for the third time, argue with your nan. All right. So open and close for me, unfortunately. Liz says, I think some people want to find a reason to blame FSG for the current state we are in without any accountability to Klopp and his team. Well, my point exactly. I'm so glad that we've got a community that just agree with everything I say. No, of course, you know. I just think it's the most logical thing. And, we've got a lot of logical people in here. We've got a lot of logical people following this channel. So, I appreciate that we've managed to kind of build that community. And Jen says, and agreed, he knew what was happening. Exactly. Whether you like it or not, Klopp takes some responsibility. If you massively disagree with the club's decision not to back Klopp, in some regards, that's on Klopp as well. Sorry, I don't make the rules. And if you don't like that, well, that's fine. You don't have to like it. But that means you have to divert some anger to Klopp as well. And I'm not saying you should. I'm not angry at Klopp. I'd trust him. If he told me to jump off a cliff, I'd give it a second thought. Because it's obviously for the greater good, isn't it? If Jurgen Klopp bloody says it. I don't blame one person in the situation. In my opinion, everyone has a part to play. Oh, no, sorry, I've read that one. Man United should do the decent thing and punish the Glazers, let Liverpool win 5-0. That would be nice, wouldn't it? I'm expecting a tough game today, to be fair. I think, you can't lose your opening 2 games, have -7 or -6 goal difference. And it's only -5, isn't it? And not expect a reaction. And it's a Liverpool game. Like, clubs always turn up for that. I know they didn't last year, but At some point, they are going to turn up, and it could just always be today, couldn't it? If we're based on analytics, surely the analytics team would tell him you're not getting full seasons out of Ox, Naby, Hendo, Thiago. All had injury issues through their careers. Well, yeah, maybe, but do any of us work in analytics? Do any of us have any experience working in a Premier League analytical team? I don't think so. So I don't think we can, you know, make up hypotheticals of where we pretend we're in that person's seat. Like maybe there is that conversation, or maybe they're saying, well, it's actually impossible to predict. Oxlade-Chamberlain could easily go through another 10 years, even though he's 28, 27. He could easily go through the next 5 years of his career and never get another injury again. And then all of a sudden, bam, he's bloody broken his wrist or something. Like, what's that got to do with anything? Not asking for Jude or Barella, just want decent midfielders who are robust and available. Yeah, and that's a totally logical conversation to have, and that can be had without people throwing shade and slurs at each other and desperately looking for what they want to see in a quote when that quote itself isn't even bloody real. I feel there was a certain budget, and because he was happy with midfield for now, he decided to spend most of it on Darwin, and probably now there isn't enough for a great midfielder. Yes, that's it, because our first target was Tchouaméni, wasn't it? And then we didn't get Tchouaméni, and then suddenly we were linked with Darwin. If we get Tchouaméni, we do not get Darwin Núñez. I'm confident of that. So how that decision was made, again, a very interesting question that I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for. And we can only guess. That's what half a football fan conjecture is when it comes to, transfer dealings, the back room, what happens. The only thing that we know for sure is what happens on that pitch. That's the only thing we can objectively look at and come to logical conclusions. What's happening? Where's he playing? What's the style of play here? What's this player been instructed to do? How are we marking so-and-so? That's the only thing we can objectively look at, because that's what we can actually see in front of our eyes. Everything within the club, in the training ground, we have no eyes on. We have no visible way of understanding exactly what's happening. So to get in to pretend that or to form an opinion that is absolute just seems bizarre. Just seems very bizarre to me, because you're just talking out of your arse, and then one thing comes up which seems like it slightly backs your point, and it turns out it doesn't at all. But that's where internal biases come in, and we've already formed an opinion. Therefore, everything else that comes out, we just look. If it meets our expectations, brilliant. Don't give it a second look. If it doesn't, we will look at it in great detail to try and discredit it. Luckily, that's what I and others have done, and you can see that original quote is fake. Others who just looked at it straight away and just thought, brilliant, that proves my point. They didn't look at it again. Jen, thank you very much for the super sticker. Much appreciated. Massive supporter of this channel. Very much appreciated. Please do like the midfield. Sorry, I was reading a bloody live chat when I started saying that. Please do like this video, and please subscribe to the channel as well. You can also become a member like me and Jen. You might see me and Jen in the chat a lot when I'm not on the stream. We've got cool little badges next to our names, and we can post exclusive emojis as well. And you get to support this channel. I'm supporting the channel, Jen's supporting the channel. If you would like to do that as well to improve our content, help us out, then you can press the join button or go to the video description and press the link to become a member. Liverpool spending is 15th in the Premier League. Is that Liverpool spending budget? Well, maybe for this year, that's what FSG have decided. But Klopp would have agreed with it. Klopp would have been okay with it, really. Otherwise, why did he sign? This is not out of the ordinary. It was only that one season where we signed Van Dijk in the January, and then we signed Fabinho and Alisson in the summer. That was like our biggest summer with FSG and Klopp, wasn't it? I think. And a lot of that was Coutinho money, as we always brag about. Suddenly we're not happy with all of that. If we don't address the midfield situation next summer, how would you react? If we miss out on Bellingham, that's a massive problem, and that is a catastrophic error by the club if that happens. But I don't think we can do anything until we know that for sure. Rabadan, thank you very, very much for the super sticker. Hope you are doing well. Much appreciated for that. Liverpool have been unlucky with injuries, but they have weakened themselves with loaning out players that they could have used at least on the bench. Yeah, Tyler Morton, definitely one of them. I mean, look, I've spoken out against Oxlade-Chamberlain a lot. Do I feel bad about it? Slightly. I think I genuinely do feel pretty sorry for the guy because he gets injured. My problem is when he was on the pitch, I don't think he really provided enough consistently. But his injuries, man, I don't know. Maybe he could have been something great. I don't know. I mean, Diaz was the Mane replacement. I feel Darwin is someone who Klopp really wanted for the future. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, I don't mean to suggest that we were never looking at Darwin Núñez until we failed to get Tchouaméni. I just mean it only ever heated up once Tchouaméni was out the window, and once it seemed like United were really going in for him. Similar to Luis Diaz, that he was on our list for ages, but it never amounted to much until it was reported that Tottenham were agreeing a fee, and then bam, it's all over the place that Liverpool really, really, really want him. So that's a big one. Has Rodgers quit yet, and has Frank been fired? Well, I think I guessed that Rodgers would get sacked first. I guessed that, and I don't know. We'll see what happens there. I reckon we were blindsided by the Tchouaméni rejection potentially. Yeah, I think that could be quite fair. And then all the Bellingham stuff we just weren't prepared for it. I think that's a sensible conclusion to make. Right, let's talk about this bloody game, shall we? For a little bit, for a few minutes. One of the biggest games of our season, no matter where the two clubs are placed. It just so happens we're both in the bottom half of the table, which is quite a strange statement to make. But we're only 2 games in, aren't we? Man United are now no longer at the bottom of the table, which is interesting because of West Ham losing again, which is interesting as well. Keita puts in a minimum effort last few years. If he was leaving on a free, his effort levels over this season is going to be shocking. Won't be risking any injury at all. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much of that's genuine or how much of it's just trying to get a longer contract. Because there's always going to be a club that would come in for him, but I genuinely don't understand why. Because of his injury record, like he could just so easily pick up a knock as soon as you sign him, and then he's out for a few weeks, isn't he? And that will just keep on happening, and that's what we've experienced, isn't it? He's a frustratingly good player who is frustrated by injuries, and that's the hill that I'll die on with Naby Keita. I think he is brilliant, and he could be so much more if it wasn't for that. Liz says, I'm looking forward to beating United. I so enjoy beating them. Well, everything tells us that we should beat them, shouldn't it? Make sure you do like this video. Everybody who's watching, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We go live at 7:30 p.m. tonight for the live watch along of the game, so do check that out. Did anyone notice that Pep didn't make any sub except Diaz for Ake, who was injured? If I was Mahrez, I would have walked today. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Bloody 5 subs come in and bloody Pep Guardiola only makes 1. But he doesn't need to, does he? Like, even though it's a 3-3, I don't think many of their players had to break much of a sweat, did they? Everything tells us that we should beat United today, doesn't it? And that's what I hate. That's what I absolutely hate about games like this. Is that even last year it was like, oh, Man United are, title contenders at the start of the season. They thought of themselves as, and so did a lot of the media as well. They thought they could genuinely challenge, and look how badly mistaken they were. But it was like a semi-evenly matched game because of that, at least. So there was not as much pressure on us in terms of we're not the complete favourites. But now that's switched. We are absolute favourites. We are nailed on to beat them. And I just hate that. I hate that sensation because the headlines are written if we don't batter them or if we don't get 3 points. Now, everything logical suggests that we will and we should. But United could easily just summon up a great performance out of nowhere that they haven't done for ages. We could continue having a tough game. We could continue having a tough start. We could concede first again. I don't know what's going to stop that. I thought we might keep a clean sheet against Crystal Palace, but I don't, I don't know. I don't know what we changed there. I think we were just quite unlucky in that game, weren't we? It won't be easy, but we will beat them. Let's kick them whilst they're down. I hate United so much. Grew up being bantered by United fans. Want to win this so bad. Absolutely. And I can't wait for this game. I'm absolutely buzzing. There's 50 of you watching, so much appreciated. Do feel free to go back to the start of this stream if you like. There's lots of interesting things to talk about. But please do like this video whilst you're here and please subscribe to the channel as well. Let United come at us and isolate their defenders one-on-one high up and we demolish them. If Maguire starts, but if he decides to actually drop Maguire and goes with Varane and Martinez, which seems like the logical thing from the bloody start anyway. And I just don't get this Man United manager thing where they all come in and at the start they seem to think that they can work miracles with players that several other managers could not work a miracle with. Like, why? Why is Scott McTominay still around that team? Why is Donny van de Beek still playing most of his games on the bench? Like, he played under Eric Ten Hag. I hope there's something big going on behind the scenes. Like, I hope he is dreadful in training or something, but I don't think he is. I don't see Donny van de Beek as that type of player. I see him as quite a dedicated professional who, despite still being in the shadows at United, is still trying his best. That's what I see. And whenever he does come on, he instantly looks to brighten up the place and create things for his team. So I don't get it. And Maguire constantly starting, Maguire still being captain, I think. It's shocking to say, but Maguire is actually the leader of that bunch. But he's not a leader, though. I just don't see it. When we were beating them 4-0 in the first half at Old Trafford, he was more dejected than anyone. He wasn't showing any leadership qualities at all. I think the board has a say in who starts. There is no way a competent manager like Ten Hag would start Maguire and McFred. Very strange, but funny. But this is, that's similar to our situation. Why? Why would a manager agree to that? Because that kind of stuff, that can only be enforced if that's written. No manager would just take the board's word on who should start. Maybe it's written into contracts, or maybe, as you say, the boards genuinely, want their expensive players to always be starting. I don't bloody know. Or want Scott McTominay starting because he's a homegrown player. I don't know. But again, the manager's always involved in that decision to join. He would have been told about that, or there would have been discussions had about it. Or if he'd have spent 5 minutes talking to Ralf Rangnick, he would have been told exactly how bad the situation is. Why would you go there? I think maybe it's partly that, but I think the managers that they've employed, or at least Ralf Rangnick at the start, I think he changed his mind towards the end, and now Eric Ten Hag, I think they've got quite big ego problems in terms of thinking they can work miracles when they don't need to. At the end of the day, they've got a board who, for right or wrong, they haven't refurbished the bloody stadium. That's leaking, and they haven't made the best appointments behind the scenes, have they? It's a bit of a mates rates company at the moment, but for all of that, they'll still spend £200-300 million in a transfer window like that. Maybe they have to lose a few games first, but they've got Martinez and Varane. Just start them. Why does Maguire have to bench either one of them? Both of them are easily better than Maguire in any sense, maybe aerially. But then again, I think Martinez is slightly underrated, and I think Varane's decent in aerially, but it's old fashioned. It's old fashioned, isn't it? I can't contemplate Eric Ten Hag benching Varane to fit Maguire into his team, or benching Donny van der Beek to fit Scott McTominay. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't understand it. And I've got a bad feeling that will start to click for him. I've got a bad feeling that's going to click for him today. And I think we could see some change. I think we could genuinely see some changes. I think Maguire could easily be dropped. Whether McTominay comes in or not, I don't bloody know. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Very, very interesting. Maguire is their best player. You are wrong, sir. Their best player. I think you're messing with me, aren't you? I can't take that as a serious statement. I know United hadn't changed when Ranić was sacked. Well, I think Ranić tried to warn them about everything, and they didn't want to listen, and neither did Ten Hag. And that's what I mean. I think he's got a bit of an ego about him, and he thinks he doesn't need Ralph Ranić's advice and thinks he can do it all on his own. So we'll see. We'll see how that develops. There's what is it? 11, 12. So that's 1 hour. Then so there's 9. I got it. There's 9 hours till kickoff. So we'll leave it there and we'll come back to this once we've got the team news and once a bit more's been said out in the media about all the various things we've spoken about. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for joining me. I've really enjoyed this stream. It's been quite good fun, actually. Please do like the video. Please subscribe to the channel as well. Live watch along from 7:30 p.m. tonight. Like and subscribe. Press the bell notification so that your phone or device will let you know when we go live, so you don't have to remember it yourselves. But we'll be live for 7:30 p.m. tonight for the full match watch along and commentary, Man United versus Liverpool, with myself. It's going to be great fun. Looking forward to seeing lots of you in the live chat supporting and getting behind the team, of course, in search of our first win. And we will, of course, have post-match reaction after the game ends. This has been Man United versus Liverpool match day morning, match day countdown with myself, Louis. Thank you very much for joining me. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you for the match watch along in about 9 hours' time. See you.